Welcome, Alicia, tech genius and architect. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here today, Gloria.
Thank you. Now, can you tell us a bit more about your work?
Yes, so I basically main all things STEM and tech. I mainly work as an architectural designer, so I basically design buildings, floor plans, facilities, that sort of thing. But I also do work as a full stack web developer, so basically all things tech. I code front end and back end, and I also do have some experience with social media management and leadership and communication and project leadership.
Hmm. What's the weather like in Canada?
Oh, it's quite nice in my opinion. It was a bit snowy before, but now it's starting to lighten up because, spring. So I do think it would be a bit comparable to the weather in the UK right about now, just that over there it's obviously a bit more rainy. But yes, I do think it's quite nice.
Just going back to your work, do you enjoy it?
Oh, I absolutely adore it. I find it very fulfilling, so to speak. It just drives me, honestly. I just wake up and I go, I'm excited to work because I just think that the ability to create, to make things with my bare hands, well, not necessarily my bare hands, but you get the point. I just think that it's lovely being able to make something and watch it come into fruition and watch it help other people around the world.
Hmm. And just being a bit of a point, have you ever had a point where you woke up and you weren't excited? You were bored with your work?
Um, I don't think I've ever been bored, so to speak, because my work it tends to have every day being something new and something different. Because obviously, not every building's the same, not every piece of code is the same, not every website's the same. So I always just find that whenever I'm working, there's always something new and something different happening. So that sort of unpredictability makes it quite interesting to me.
Hmm. And did you ever think you'd turn out to be a tech genius and an architect?
I definitely feel like I knew that I was going to work vaguely with tech, but I didn't really think that much about the whole architect part because obviously when I do grow up, I do want to become an astrophysicist. And since I was little, I knew that was what I wanted. So I knew, oh yeah, I'm going to have to work with tech a little bit, but I definitely didn't think I'd be as into it as I am now. So it is quite interesting just thinking back about it.
And were there any other hobbies you liked to do other than tech and
Yes, I do have quite a number of hobbies. Um, for example, I do a lot of animation, graphic design. I just generally love drawing and that sort of thing, and I absolutely adore reading. If I had like a book list of all the books I've read over my entire life, it would probably be huge. So yes, I do have quite a number of hobbies, but I find a way to balance them with my work.
Hmm. Just going back to your work and your career, um, what inspired you to become a tech genius? Because you said that you didn't think of being you didn't think that you'd be an architecture, but from the start, what inspired you to become a tech genius?
I definitely feel like one day I woke up, so to speak, and gained sentience. I want to use that word. I just realized I can make stuff. You know, when you just sort of look at a building across the street and you're like, huh, I wonder who made that. And then you realize that you can make stuff too. And I definitely feel like just that realization that I wasn't necessarily boxed in by what the world deemed as you can do this and you can't do that. That realization sort of just like helped me thrive and it just pushed me to learn all that I have today.
Hmm. Can you tell can you tell us a memorable challenge you faced and how you overcame it?
Uh, I definitely feel like one of the challenges I faced was having to figure out how to balance everything. And I definitely feel like that's where scheduling came in. So obviously, I made my first website, I coded my first blog in 2020, and that was when I realized after months and months of work that not every project could be like this. I couldn't go about spending like 6 months on every single thing ever. So that's when I decided to start scheduling and to start grouping my time into little boxes and to just allow me to better think through things when they're more organized. So yes, that is the challenge I faced, and scheduling is how I fixed it.
Hmm. And what happened when you didn't schedule?
Um, I definitely got a bit more disorganized. Like I would end up with all these half-done projects like, oh, this thing's half coded, this thing's half designed, this thing's half drawn, this thing's half animated. And I just end up with this big box of stuff that was like half done and I couldn't really find the motivation to finish it all the way. And then I was like, you know what? No, this can't be like I can't be like this forever. So I'm just gonna schedule things and group things into order. And then I ended up going through a majority of the projects quite fast as well. So it
And did
helped.
anyone ever tell you before you started scheduling that what you're doing before was wrong?
Um, I definitely feel like people didn't exactly tell me that it was wrong, so to speak, but obviously, working with a ton of different people from a ton of different backgrounds, you do face that sort of criticism because everyone has a certain way they want things to be done, and it's usually their way. So I had to learn how to sort of accept that positive criticism, like, oh, well, maybe let's not do it like this, let's do it like that, and maybe let's not design this like that. Maybe let's do it my way. And I just sort of had to learn to be able to accept other people's opinions and just sort of move with the flow of things, so to speak.
Mm. How do you stay motivated and continue to innovate in your work?
So I definitely find that one of the ways I motivate myself is by, I want to use the term Pavlov's dogging myself. It's basically whenever I reach a goal, I give myself a reward. I reward myself with breaks and cartoons. And in like those breaks, I just let myself be. So I definitely feel like having that goal set and then knowing once I hit that goal, I'm gonna get something nice, a little treat for myself. It definitely helped motivate me quite a bit.
When did you start doing this?
I think I started maybe a year or two after I first started my journey into like tech, so to speak, because I just sort of realized that I was doing it unconsciously. Like whenever I'd hit a goal, I'd be like, "Oh, this is nice. I'm gonna get myself a sweet. I'm gonna watch like the movies I've been putting off watching," and I just realized that it just made me so happy that I was like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna do this now as like a permanent thing." And then I finally put a name to it once I read an article about Pavlov's dog and the psychology behind it. And I was like, okay, well, this works for me, so I'm gonna keep it going.
Mm. And did someone tell you that you should do this, or did you just think of it from your mind to do it?
Um, so I don't really think someone specifically told me that I should do that. It's one of those things where you're just sort of working and it just comes to you naturally. So obviously I just like start out like working and doing something normal, and then someone would come over and be like, "Oh, that's good work. That's good work." And I'd find that I was very motivated by that sort of approval. So then I was like, "Oh, yes, well maybe I should do that for myself, right?" So then I just found that giving myself little treats and little breaks and like spending time with my hobbies when I'd finished a really long project or like watching cartoons after it would just help me relax and restructure, so to speak.
Mm. And what is your biggest accolade?
My biggest accolade. Oh, that's a big one. That's a big question. Well, I do have quite a few achievements. I don't really know how I'd group them on the scale. For example, I did represent Uganda at the UN Convention in Nairobi in 2019. I was also the winner of the Ambassador for a Day competition in Uganda in 2023, and I have won multiple Olympia Globals competitions. For example, I was the winner of Boston 2020 and London 2024. But I don't think I'd group them based off of scale, so to speak, because I just cherish them all so much that it's kind of hard to have a favorite.
Mm.
So, but I think if I was to like go based off of scale, one of my biggest accolades to date would have to be working on the Ugandan Silicon Valley project, because it definitely allowed me to sort of step into that leadership role and to lead the architectural design for ISET, the Institute of Space Science Research Exploration and Technology. And I definitely feel like having that experience just sort of helped me push on and help me thrive. And it gave me quite a bit of joy to see the designs come to fruition. And yes, obviously we haven't fully finished constructing yet, but still just being able to see all of those people's reactions to like the pitch deck, it was quite nice, quite pleasant.
And how did you feel when you got this? When you got the achievement, how did you feel? Were you shocked? Were you in gasp? Were you excited? Were you happy? Were you nervous? Anxious?
So I don't think it fully registered, so to speak. When I was called into the office and they were like, "Hey, it's you want to work on this? You're going to work on this." Um, I actually didn't even have to ask them to work on it, but they were like, "Hey, this is a $155 million project. Do you want to work on a section of it?" And I was just like, "Yes." So I don't think it fully hit me until like a couple of months after I'd already finished the designs and everything. Then I was like, "This is a $155 million project, and you worked on a key part of it." It just sort of hit me, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. That's very impressive. Like, just to myself, I was like, that's awesome. Yeah.
And before you finish design, before you telling yourself that, did you have someone approach you and be like, "Oh my God, you're doing that. That's amazing." And did you ever like register it in your mind, like when someone told you it before you?
So I definitely feel like I did have quite a few experiences with that because I did have to present it at the State House in Uganda, and having all of these people who are obviously in higher positions than me go, wow, that's amazing, and you thought about the sustainability of this design. It was just quite nice having someone like sort of give me that sort of validation for my work. Like, yes, this is nice. Thank you for acknowledging that. And also the great coaches that I had helping me along the way, having them sort of come up like when I was midway through the process and just being like, this is great, Alicia. This is good work. It was quite nice just having someone acknowledge that. Yeah.
Hmm. What is your creative process like?
So my creative process. So first off, what I like to do is whenever I get like a really big idea, I like to get all of it out all at once, just get all of it out. It's not really very organized, so I usually like to mood board at first. I just get a bunch of pictures, a bunch of different inspirations that I think would be quite nice to put together. I just get them all out into like a Pinterest board or into a Google Docs sheet, and then I just start thinking of how to put it together about a day or two after I've done that. I just start thinking out the theory of it after I've done essentially all the fun stuff. Then after I've thought out the theory of it and how it's meant to work and the sustainability, because I am very big on making sure that most of my designs are sustainable and are disability friendly. That's when I actually start doing the work and I put in the coding or the design and I just sort of mesh it all together at the end of the day. And then obviously after some like user testing and peer review, basically people telling me this looks good, this doesn't really work, then I sort of finalize it and then put it together in one final project presentation.
And how has it evolved?
I definitely feel like my process has evolved quite a bit. Because back in the day, when I was just starting out, I wouldn't really have a plan, so to speak. I just go, oh, I want to do this. And I just go and do it. And obviously, that's not very sustainable because, you get burnt out if you don't really have that much of a plan. So then just planning and being able to think things through generally helped with that. The further along the process as I got, I would just be like, okay, well, I can't just keep going at it forever because obviously one day I'm going to burn out if I keep doing it like that. So I need to start scheduling, I need to start thinking it through fully. And that's when I started.
And did someone tell you this, like a mentor, or did you just figure it out yourself that you needed to switch what you were doing? Otherwise, you were just gonna burn out, as you said.
I definitely feel like I did have some mentors mention it to me, like some of my coaches, they're like, okay, this is really good, but you kind of stop halfway there. What happened? And I'd go, I don't really know. And then eventually it sort of like clicked. And my mom also kept mentioning it to me. She was like, "Oh, this is nice, but why'd you stop halfway there?" And I was like, "I don't really know." And then eventually it just sort of clicked, and she'd be like, "You know what? You have to start planning." And I was like, "You know what? I do have to start planning because I can't just keep doing things halfway and then sort of like leaving it for the rest of it." So yeah.
Mm. How do you balance your personal life with your professional commitments?
I definitely feel like I just sort of give myself time to just be me outside of work. Like obviously in the middle of work, like if I've hit like a sort of like goal point, I do allow myself to have a little bit of a break. I just read or watch some cartoons or watch some TV. I just let myself be and I generally relax. And then after that, I find myself way more refreshed and then I feel ready to get back at it again.
Has anyone ever criticized you for stopping, like taking breaks, or have they congratulated you?
I definitely feel like I didn't really face as much criticism with the breaks because I usually plan them out. I plan them out, I schedule them with timing and that sort of thing. If anything, sometimes I have been told that I need to take more breaks. And I'm like, no, I want to work. I want to get all of this out before I lose motivation or that sort of thing. And they'd be like, no, just plan ahead, plan ahead. And my mom would tell me to plan as well. And I just do it. I'd get the plan out, I would schedule everything, and then I generally find that it works way better when I know exactly what time I have to spend with it. And obviously, I was blessed with great mentors and coaches on my growing journey, and they helped me a lot, just sort of like realizing that I could take breaks and it was okay for me to rest a bit, and I didn't just have to constantly be foot to the metal, pedal to the metal.
Mm. And did you believe them when they told you, instead of saying you should be taking less breaks, that you should be taking more breaks?
Um, I feel like at first it didn't really register because I was just sort of like, well, I can keep doing this forever. And then it just sort of hit me one day, and I was like, I can't keep this up. It's not feasible. It's not sustainable. If I keep going like this, one of these days, I might just collapse of exhaustion. And I was like, that's not feasible. That's not sustainable. I need to have an actual plan. And I just found that one day I realized that it was okay for me to rest and okay for me to take breaks and okay for me to not constantly be in the zone, and sometimes I could just chill.
Hmm. What advice would you give someone just starting as a tech genius or an architect?
Um, I would definitely tell someone just starting out, first off, always plan, always schedule, always make sure you have an idea of where you want to go and how you want to get there. And another piece of advice I'd give is don't be afraid to ask for help, definitely, because all those resources are there, all the people are there. It's always nice to be able to have someone working with you. So don't be afraid to ask for help or to ask for someone to help mentor you or coach you or just be with you on the process. And the third piece of advice I'd give is don't have too many ideas all at once, so to speak. Obviously, it's nice to have ideas. Ideas are a dime a dozen, but obviously, you can't do everything at once. So, schedule, plan, and think things through. Which ones are feasible, which ones aren't, and then go from there. And also, just make sure to have fun at the end of the day, because if you're not having fun, then really, what are you doing?
And did you ever have too many ideas that you had to kind of compromise or choose?
Oh, I definitely did. Like if I just had like $1 for every single idea I'd had that I ended up not putting to paper or not coding out or not designing, I feel like I'd be a millionaire. I'd be a millionaire at this point. But obviously, it's like that with everyone. With every single process, you're gonna have a bunch of different ideas that you want to come together, and some of them just don't fit. And no matter how hard you hammer at the puzzle, if a piece won't fit, it won't fit. So yes, I did have to streamline quite a bit and go, this is feasible, this isn't. And some of these just don't make sense. I had them like a second ago, and thinking back now to that second, they don't make sense. They can't work. And not just like me being it's not just me being pessimistic, it's just legitimately I cannot do this. I cannot do this, and I don't really want to do it because at the end of the day it's not really very interesting to me. So yes, I did have to learn how to sort of filter through what I could do and what I wanted to do and what was just sort of like a spark of the moment type thing.
And was there ever a moment in your career where you had to let go a favorite project that even your mentors and your coaches were telling you probably have to let go? And how did that feel when you had to tell yourself you've got to let this project go, even though how much you felt, how much interest you had for it?
I definitely feel like I haven't had a lot of those moments because usually whenever I come up with a project idea before I even like give it off to a mentor or something of the sort, or a teacher, or just like ask for advice on it, I've already streamlined, I've already thought this through, I've already given it a sort of like thought moment where it's like, can I do this? Is this feasible? Will this cause me to burn out? And how much stress will this put on me? And also, does it work with my schedule? I have had a few projects where I've just had like given it off to my mentors or my mom, and they're like, you need to scale this back. You can't do this right now, maybe later, but not right now. Like for example, one of the projects that I think I did have an idea for and it did work out because I'm still working on it, is for my mental health and wellness app, Welkin. It was one of those things that I had a couple of years ago, and then the idea just sort of like fell through the cracks, and I just had that sort of presentation that never went anywhere. And then at the start of this year, my mom reminded me about it, and she was like, hey, this is a good thing. Why don't you do it? And I was like, oh, well, I just didn't. It didn't really go anywhere. And she was like, well, it should go somewhere because it's quite a lovely idea. And I actually did end up coding it, and I'm still coding it. We're actually about to go into the user testing phase, which is quite nice. So yes, I do feel like I had to generally allow myself to let go of things that I just couldn't do at the moment. But remember, hey, maybe later on I can try this again. If it works, it's good. If it doesn't, well, I can always just take a step back and rethink and reimagine it.
Hmm. Can you tell us a project you're working on and what you hope to achieve?
I'm currently working on Welkin, my mental health and wellness app, as I mentioned before. So far we're about to go into the user testing phase, obviously, and I think it's quite nice so far. It's always nice to have that sort of like feeling of being able to talk to someone without having someone actually like so to speak. It's just nice to be able to talk to a stranger sometimes. Everyone needs to talk to a stranger, and that sounds really dangerous. But I'm just gonna preface this by saying please don't talk to strangers. Yes, but Welkin sort of allows you to get all of your feelings out onto a secure app, onto a place where you just know no one else is going to be able to see this. This is all about you and about your feelings. And I am currently coding it, and it's going great. Progression is steady. And I definitely feel like it is what the world needs today. They just need a place to sort of like let themselves go and to sort of like help that mental health aspect of themselves and just relax and just be. So that is what Welkin aims to do. And yes, progress is steady. I love it so far. I hope everyone else likes it when it releases too. So yes.
Um, just a follow-up question. When did this idea come to you? Was it recently or was it way back?
Oh, it was quite an old idea. When I was doing a Harvard CS50 course, one of our final projects was to come up with the idea for an app. And that was when I came up with the idea for Welkin. It was around 2021-ish, give or take. And then I just sort of had it laying in storage for a bit because I just forgot all about it. And then at the beginning of 2025, my mom reminded me about it. She found it and she was like, hey, this is a good idea. What happened? And I was like, well, I don't really know. It just never went anywhere. And then she was like, well, it could go somewhere. And that sort of pushed me to sort of like start coding it and actually making it a thing. So now so far it's like a desktop app. It's not fully released yet because obviously, we still have to test, make sure that we have good feedback from our users because above all, it is about how it affects our users and how safe they feel with it. So we want to make sure it's all okay before we release it completely. So yes, it was quite an old idea, but now it's sort of getting a facelift, so to speak, a new look.
Hmm. Just to make this clear, but was it a forgotten project or was it a work in progress project?
Um, the idea was a forgotten project, but now it's a work in progress. My mom reminded me about it, and then I took a look at it and I was like, this is doable, this is feasible, and now it's currently a work in progress. So
And
yes,
did
it's just
your
one of those ideas that I set away and I just got it back.
hmm. And did your mentors tell you the same? Or was it just coming to your mind?
Um, my mentors didn't really when I was coming up with the idea for Welkin, I don't really think I told anyone about it, to be honest. Because I was obviously submitting it as a final project, so apart from like the teachers in the course and that sort of thing, no one else knew about it. So until today, until right now this year, no one else had really known about it. But now a bunch of people do know about it. And so far I've had quite positive feedback. A lot of people like, that's a really good tool. I would love to use that. I would love to be able to have that in my space and just to be able to use it without sort of stressing about, oh, is my data safe? Is this safe? Is this going to be something that eventually gets out and then sort of like throws me throws me off guard. But no, so far I had quite good feedback. So yes, I quite like that.
Mm. What do you consider the most essential qualities to be a tech genius or a architect? Either one.
Um, I definitely think you need to have that creativity because obviously when you go outside, there's like a billion different buildings that are all shaped exactly the same. So you should definitely be able to have that creativity, that sort of aspect that makes you different, what makes you stand out. Ideas are a dime a dozen, creators are a dime a dozen, but what makes you you? And I definitely think it's that sort of creativity and that drive as well because creativity without drive is essentially nothing. You're just going to be sat there with all these ideas, all of these great concepts, and where are you going with them? Nowhere. So a mix of creativity and drive, I think, definitely work together to just make you you.
Yes. Did anyone ever tell you this? Like, did your mentors tell you that you should do this, or were you just, well, you just, did you just think of it?
I definitely feel like I did have a few suggestions from people like, oh, maybe you should look at this. And then I did look at it, but like obviously they were like offhanded suggestions, like as you're in conversation with someone, they're like, hey, you might like this. And then obviously it was up to me after that to sort of like put my foot to the metal and just sort of like go, hey, I really like this. Let me just get into it all the way. So yes, obviously I have had some suggestions, but for the most part, I definitely think it's just me sort of going out and reaching out and taking all of that information and that help everyone's given me and just sort of using it to build myself up. Yes.
Hmm. How do you handle criticism or negative feedback on your part?
So criticism and negative feedback, I definitely do feel like I've had to build a bit of a thick skin. Because obviously sometimes you do need criticism. You legitimately need someone to sit you down and tell you, hey, this isn't working and you need to change it because it's not feasible. And that's been helpful. You have to learn to accept criticism and go, okay, well, what do you think would work? And accept other people's ideas. Because obviously, working with a bunch of different people from all different walks of life, you have to learn to accept that sometimes you're not always the smartest person in the room. And that has been quite an interesting thing to sort of factor in. But as for negative criticism, obviously I have had to like grow a bit of a thick skin because there's some people who are like, that's stupid, you're lying about your age or you're lying about what you did. And I've had to go, no, I'm not really lying. But then at the end of the day, it's not so much about what they think of me as it is about what I think of me and just about me going, okay, so forget all about what they said. Just think about what you have to do. Because at the end of the day, when I'm the one working, they're not exactly the ones with me. So I just have to streamline.
Can you tell us a mistake you made in your career and what you learned from it?
Um, so I definitely think a mistake that I made in my career at a certain point was I don't want to say it was like losing it, but sort of like having to lower my sort of sense of self-belief. For example, obviously, you can only take so many hits before you're like, maybe I should quit. And then it's like, no, I had to sort of like grab myself by the shoulders and go, no, you shouldn't. You're doing a good thing. You're doing good things, powerful things. So you shouldn't have to quit just because like some random person on the internet says, oh, well, you're a liar and your work's not actually that good. Yes, so I have had to like sort of like give myself that sort of like push up, like, no, you can do this. You are good enough. You are great enough. So that sort of like self belief, it has been quite nice to have.
Hmm. Hmm. And has anyone ever told you this to your face before?
To my face, I don't quite think anyone has because obviously, with the digital age and the digital era,
Yes.
everyone tends to feel so much more comfortable behind a screen. But obviously to your face, no one's gonna say you're stupid and you're
Yeah,
ugly and
yeah.
also you work stupid. So yes, I don't think that anyone's ever said it to my face, and if they have, I genuinely don't think I've picked up on it. Like I have not been paying attention to what they say. So yes, I don't think anyone's ever said it outright to my face. Because if anyone did, I'd be like, wow, that's bold.
Hmm. How, what do you, as I'm just going to go back to my hobbies question that I said at the start,
Yes.
but going different, going more specific. What do you like to do in your spare time?
In my spare time, I quite like to draw. I quite like to draw. I like to read. I occasionally do watch cartoons. It's just nice to be able to let yourself go and to be able to give myself that sort of you're not working anymore. This is a chill moment. You can relax. So yes, I generally do like to watch vintage cartoons and vintage movies just because that animation style I always quite find it interesting to look at and to think of, wow, not a lot of people do this anymore. So it's quite nice to just sort of feel that sense of nostalgia. Like this is
Mm.
quite nice. Someone made it and it's beautiful.
Can you describe a moment where you felt you made a real difference through your work, wait, through the world through your work, in the world through your work?
I definitely feel like a moment where I felt as though I made a real difference was when I delivered inspirational talks to young people and to parents on STEM topics. And I encouraged a lot of support for this generation's children. And also when I mentored young girls in STEM through the Ambassador for a Day initiative, I just felt like I was legitimately making a difference. Like, this is going to go out to someone and it's going to change their life. Well, hopefully it changes their life. And it's just going to give them that kick to sort of like, hey, you can do this. And I genuinely felt that was very rewarding, just like the idea of that.
Mm. How do you stay current with kind of field trends and developments that have new tech ideas, for instance?
Um, I definitely feel like I try to stay as current with the trends as possible. I am subscribed to quite a few tech magazines and to quite a few tech tubers, tech YouTubers, and it's just always nice to be able to look at the community and go, "Wow, this is innovative." Like for example, I do remember quite watching quite a few reviews about CES 2025, basically this huge tech conference where everyone comes in and all these game changers are there and they just sort of like talk about their product. And I watched a review about it and I was like, the industry is really shaping up. So it's just lovely to be able to see that. So yes, I do tend to keep up with it quite a bit, with the news quite a bit, because obviously you do have to evolve as the world evolves as well, as the
Mm.
technology evolves as well.
Yes. What would be a dream project or co-collaboration?
A dream project. Oh my. That's a big question. A co-collaboration. Well, I would absolutely adore the possibility of working with a FANG company, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, just working with sort of like tech giants and people who have been in the industry for so long and being able to study under them, it would be like a dream literally. And obviously I have been working on a few side projects myself, like for example a sort of Alexa, no, I don't really want to say copy, but like she's like Alexa, but for me, and her name's Athena. And to be able to have someone from that space give me advice and go, hey, you can edit your code, you can make it more powerful like this. I think just being able to study under them would be a dream.
Mm. Can you describe a moment where you had to make a tough decision as a tech genius or architect, and how you approached it?
A tough decision I had to make. I think as an architect, because I'm going to give an example for both of them. As an architect, I had to, as an architectural designer, I had to learn how to sort of like let go. Because obviously, with every project that you create, you do tend to feel that sort of sense of attachment with them, with it. And at a certain point, I just had to learn to sort of like let go, give it out to the world, give it to other people to add their own like opinions to it and that sort of thing. And it was definitely a bit of a struggle learning how to like just sort of take it out of mind, out of sight, out of mind. Like this is mine, but other people can look at it, other people can hold it and sort of like help edit it. And then with tech, I definitely feel like I had to sort of open myself up to the possibility of not being the smartest person in the room. It's always nice to learn under other people. And sometimes you just have to like shut your ego down and be able to open yourself up. Like, okay, maybe my code could be streamlined, maybe it could be made more efficient. I can allow someone else to work on what I have and to help me make it more efficient without like sort of like feeling that sort of sense of possessiveness about it.
Hmm. Name one item you cannot live without.
Oh, one item I can't live without. I have to say,
Sorry to interrupt, just being like in your work view, other than your work, if it wasn't your work, well, name
yeah.
one item you can't live. Yeah,
Okay. One item I don't think I can part with. So I don't think I can part with the Bible, so to speak. I am quite religious, and I generally feel like being able to have sort of like that sort of like sense of peace and calm in general when you just like read the scriptures, and it just feels quite nice, to be honest. A lot of people might not relate to it, but I think it's just one thing that I sort of vibe with, so to speak. It just helps me whenever you have to take a step back and reflect. It just helps me reflect, regroup, think about, oh well, someone wrote these stories hundreds of years ago, someone wrote these tales about God millions of years ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago. Someone did this and I'm reading it right now. Who knows, maybe one day I'll be able to write something that people read hundreds of thousands of years into the future. It's like, it sounds a bit comparative, but I'm not trying to compare anything. I just think it's quite nice to be able to read about scripture and about religion.
yes. Now, this one's probably going to be way off in the future, but just past you. What do you hope your legacy will be?
Um, I hope that my legacy will be just me being able to showcase like the word of God through me. Me being able to leave my work that stands the test of time, and like just for people to be able to see like who I was, and not just who I was, but who worked through me and what I created. I just hope that one day someone's gonna see that and go, hey, that's Alicia's. That's Alicia. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I will forever be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely being with you, Gloria. Thank you.
Bye.